Hi, I am here today with the what I wore this month video for the month of November. This video is about a week late. I had intended to film it last week, but unfortunately I've had a lot going on and didn't have a chance to. So I am here with it today. My cycle this month, I started spotting on the 21st and it lasted 5 days with the day of spotting on the end. So it was closer to my normal cycle length, which is usually 6 full days of bleeding with a day of spotting on both ends. This was 5, so a little bit shorter, but I actually used a lot less pads this month because I got the opportunity to finally pick up a Femmycycle cup. I actually traded for this cup in one of the Facebook groups, and I used it for 3.5-ish days of my cycle, and I absolutely loved it. I did have one hiccup on the half day, the 4th potential day that I would have been using it, where I had put it in the evening and went to sleep with it, and I guess I must have been moving around in my sleep, or perhaps it wasn't opened properly when I inserted it and it popped, and it actually flipped upside down inside of me. And trying to get this out, this is one of the very it's fabulous because it's a very squishy cup, but this type of material is also very slippery when especially when it's wet. So I had to actually spend a little time getting it out, and then I didn't put it back in after that. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to use it. I just felt like switching to pads at that point. So that was the only cup I wore this cycle. On my first day, which was the Saturday, I put on this B pad. It's a 10-inch moderate that I made myself. And I wore this just, you know, just in case I had started my full period, but it was just a tiny, tiny little bit of spotting. Then on the first day of my actual period, I wore this beautiful 14-inch custom dyed OBV topped pad from Hoo Hoo Rags. This is her curvy style. It's wind block backed, which is, to me, it's made by the same company as Winpro, and I cannot tell the difference between this and Winpro. I've spent a good 5 minutes inspecting them, and I've used quite a few Winpro pads and wind block pads, and they work the same in my opinion. So I put on this beautiful pad. I wore this for the first few hours of my cycle when I was really heavy. And then I decided to put on my new Lazy Creek boutiques. These are 12 inches. They are a knit topped and a Winpro backed. These pads are amazingly thin, and I have to say that Lazy Creek boutique is fastly becoming one of my favorites, if not my absolute favorite, because these pads work amazing with scrundies, and that's primarily all I wear at this point. I love them because they've got a bit of stretch to them, so they really work well with the wider gusset of the scrundies, and they're also beautiful, and they're so inconspicuous when you're wearing them. They're so thin you don't even realize that you're wearing a pad. So I wore these two on the second day, and I wore this in the morning, and I wore this one in the afternoon, and this one in the evening, and then that night I put on this 14-inch beautiful overnight heavy pad from Netta, from Eco Owl, or Eco Owl by Netta. It's cotton topped, and I think it's just a polar fleece on the black back. It's a very plush pad, but I like a plush pad to sleep in. And then the next day I put in my Femmycycle for the first time. I have to say I didn't have much of a learning curve with inserting this. The one thing I couldn't do, I couldn't use, a lot of people, there's a little indent here, they use the punch down fold to insert this because it is quite small, but it didn't work for me. So my old trusty fold that I've always used with my Diva cup over the last 6 years is the C fold, and this pops open quite easy, so I had to use the C fold with it. Not a big deal, but I got it in fine, not much of a learning curve. I didn't have any troubles with it. I put on another 12-inch Lazy Creek boutique. Again, these pads absorb so much, and they're so thin, and they're so comfortable to wear because you barely feel them. So I pretty much, on one of my heaviest days, I got to forget that I was even on my cycle. So I wore this one. It didn't even get used because I had a little bit of leaking, but that was from, you know, residue. It wasn't that I was actually bleeding around the cup. It was just blood that had already been there. So tiny little bit of leaking. And then that night, I got to wear this pad for most of the day. And then later on in the evening, I put on this 14-inch Lazy Creek Boutique in this amazing Little Shop of Horrors print. Put this on and wore it to bed overnight. And then the next day, I got up and I put on my awesome Frida Kahlo pad. This is a 12.5-inch one that I made myself. It's an exposed core style, cotton topped, and lambskin fleece on the back. And then I took out my cup and I got the opportunity to wear this absolutely beautiful pad tie cloth pad. If you can see when the light hits it, it's almost shimmery. This is OBV topped. It's a custom dye. It has got to be one of the most beautiful fabrics I have, just for the way, I don't know who dyed it, but it's absolutely just gorgeous. I love the jewel tones. And of course, because of these colors, it's never, ever, ever, ever going to stain. So, absolutely gorgeous. This is 12 inches, OBV topped, and fleece backed. And then overnight, I wore this, I'm trying to remember the size of it, 12-inch bathtub ladies. This is a Hoo Hoo Rags in her curvy style. It is cotton topped and wind block fleece backed. I love this pad. The print on it totally cracks me up. And then the next day, because my flow is starting to really, really lighten up, I just wore the one pad. This is a 13-inch knit topped, micro fleece backed panty candy pad. And then the last day, this is actually a heavy yurt craft pad, cotton topped, and then she's got the Power Shield Pro on the back, so it's super, super thin, even though it's a heavy. And I wore this just because it's also a really comfortable, flexible pad to wear with scrundies. And that was the end of my cycle. So in total this month, I wore 12 pads, considerably less. I'm normally like 18 to 20-ish. But I wore them less because I got to try out my Femmycycle, which I really loved. So if you have any questions, ladies, please feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. If I missed anything or forgot anything, just let me know. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. Bye.